we're here to protect you and the ones that you love. It's a good feeling to know that our efforts aren't going unnoticed.
It actually brought tears to my eyes to know that we have this support.
You're welcome. I must just say you're welcome. It's stressful, but we're not going anywhere.
Welcome to another edition of Bucknell Baseball Through the Decades. This session, we get to hear from the guys from the 1990s, and we're excited to have 4 alums on board, as well as Coach Heather and one of our current players, Brendan Tuttle, a senior pitcher from Hollywood, Florida. My name's Todd Newcomb, and I want to thank our sponsor, Geisinger, for all that they do for the community and certainly all they've done during the pandemic to help keep people safe and treat everyone here locally and around the country. Tonight, I have 4 alums I'd like to introduce, and I'm going to start with Kurt Waldner from the class of 1993. Kurt still ranks 4th on the career list for fewest walks per 9 innings pitched at 2.18. He also is 4th on the career wins list with 17. He's among the top 10 in 3 additional career pitching categories, including complete games, where he's 2nd with 19, and shutouts, where he's 3rd with 4. Kurt won the Bradley N. Tufts Award at the Senior Awards Dinner. Our second guest is Kevin Silverman from the class of 1996. Kevin was a team captain in 1996. He holds a school record with a 27-game hitting streak that occurred in the 95 season. He ranks 8th in career slugging percentage and home runs at .571 and 19, respectively. He was an All-Patriot League first-team selection in 1995 and 1996, both at third base. The Patriot League Player of the Year in 1996, and Kevin won the Ronald J. Pete Pedrick Award at the Senior Awards Dinner. Our third guest is Eric Young from the class of 1999. He was the team captain in 1999. He ranks in the top 10 in 5 career pitching categories, including wins, saves, and strikeouts. He was an All-Patriot League second-team selection in 1997 and 1998 as a relief pitcher, and he was selected in the 11th round of the 1999 Major League Baseball draft by the Los Angeles Dodgers. Our final alum on the call this evening is Tyler Prout from the class of 2000. Tyler was the team captain in 2000. He holds the school career marks with 157 RBIs, 20 triples, and 13 sacrifice flies. He ranks among the top 10 in 8 additional offensive categories, including home runs, hits, total bases, and slugging percentage. He was an All-Patriot League first-team selection in 1997 at third base, and also in 1999 and 2000 at second base. He was a Louisville Slugger freshman All-American following the 1997 season. He won the Bradley N. Tufts Award at the Senior Awards Dinner, and he was inducted into the Bucknell Athletics Hall of Fame in 2012. Coach Heather, you got a great group of alums, and we'll let you take over and have some fun with this group.
Sure. Thank you guys for jumping on with us. Really excited. Would love to get you guys back in the lineup for sure after hearing all those accolades and get you on the bump too. I love those strike throwers, Kurt, so we could use that for sure. But we'll start off with you. Take us back to the beginning and kind of tell us how your recruiting process went and kind of how that unfolded.
Well, I'm definitely the old guy here. I actually physically wrote a letter to Coach Depew saying, you know, I had a lot of family members go to Bucknell. I was the 18th Waldner to go there. So, I grew up going to homecoming games and wrote him that letter and said, gee, I'd really be interested in playing baseball. Here's my schedule. I think he came down and saw me at one game. And the next thing I know, I was playing fall ball, which was great. And my freshman year was the first year that the field was across 15. So we had those growing bumps too, but there was no video, there was no stats that were kept. If I wanted to watch any kind of video or send anything, it would have been my dad's little 8mm tapes that he took at the games. So that the whole concept of recruiting has definitely blossomed since I went through it.
Yeah, I heard there were a lot of triples in the first couple of years. The surface over there on
Outfield was fast. Yeah, yeah.
Sure, for sure. All right, Kevin.
Yeah, I guess I echo Kurt on this one. I mean, I don't think I even talked to Coach Depew before I showed up at Bucknell, and I had to try out. And it's pretty crazy because my son's going through some of this stuff now, and to see the difference between back when I went and through the recruiting process and what he's doing now. You know, I didn't leave Long Island to play baseball until I went to college, which is almost unheard of now. But yeah, I basically showed up and tried out. That's all I got.
Eric?
Yeah, I somehow made a VHS tape of myself pitching, and I sent it to a couple schools, and Coach Depew got a little hit there. And when I went on my visit, I honestly fell in love with the guy, and that was it. That's all it took. It was like, this guy is a genuine human being, and I want to play for him. And that's kind of how my recruiting process went. There weren't a whole lot of hits from other schools or anything like that. Maybe a couple others, but it was like, I met this man and I was like, I genuinely want to play for him. And I look up 25 years later, I've come across two gentlemen in the game that are as like quality human beings as he was. And ultimately it ended up becoming the right choice for myself. So that's how I went.
That's great. Tyler?
Yeah, I guess not too much difference for me. I do remember writing out a recruiting card, which was like a little blue thing like this. This isn't it. It's actually my passcodes for my computer. So, but I remember writing that out, and I know, Depew took such care of his guys that it was, I think, the senior dinner, he decided that he would hand us back those recruiting cards. So I actually have a recollection of what I wrote on that. And it was pretty much the entirety of the recruiting process. I wrote that, like, my size and my time in the 60, and I wrote how much better I thought I was going to get between the time I wrote it out and the time I started at Bucknell. I do remember meeting him at the batting cage at a camp at UVA. It was one of those like showcase camps, and I was not being looked at. I was like tagging along with a friend of mine who was all the ACC schools were interested in. But Coach Depew, I played with his nephew in high school, and I think, after meeting him and he showed an interest in me and talked about the program, and then I just went to the school for a fall visit and fell in love. So, I mean, it was really just fortuity, I think. So I'm sure a lot has changed since then.
For sure. That was one of the first things he taught me was just his process of it. He called it reactive recruiting, responding to every inquiry that came in. And he was willing to meet with anybody. And he just was great in the office in terms of that, in terms of following up with guys and just getting a read on what type of person each kid was, and making them feel comfortable and making them want to come to Bucknell for sure. Well, back to Kurt. As a player, talk about how you matured on the field, from day one until your senior season. Talk about that a little bit.
I learned how to pitch instead of just being a thrower.
Mm-hmm.
In high school, I think my senior year, I had 101 strikeouts. And so I went in thinking I was going to be all cocky and throw the ball by all these guys. And I think our first scrimmage was against Bloomsburg. And first guy up, throw the old number 1 down and laser right by my head. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's all right. Second guy rips it down the left field line, and I'm like, okay, I gotta start thinking now. And it was weird, I used to throw a 12-6 curveball, but I would, cup my hand. And the pitching coach at the time, Mr. Coach Melman, had one of the other senior pitchers stand to the side and said, call his pitches. What the heck's going on here? And, this is like my first real bullpen in college. And, threw a fastball. I got to about here, and he's going curve. And he's like, well, if the guy can see it over there, then the batter's going to – and that, it made me become much more of a more thoughtful pitcher. And that's, I think that's really where I grew through the time and learned how to throw and be more of a control pitcher and work towards contact instead of trying to blow the ball by kids.
Great. Kevin?
Yeah, I think for me it was physical fitness. I think before I came to Bucknell, you're playing high school ball, you're with a bunch of high school boys, and you can kind of get away with not working hard off the field and just hitting your home runs, whatever. But when I got to Bucknell, and then I could see just first of all the effort that everybody put into the weight room and just the size of the people, and that was the biggest change for me. Is once I got there, obviously Coach Depew was getting everybody in the gym, showing them how to work out, and my game went through the roof just compared to where I was when I showed up, and mostly it was because of the physical fitness. And back then, not everybody in high school was working with weights, but once you got to college, that's where it all changed, and I think that's where my game improved the most from showing up.
When I got to Bucknell, Coach Curtis, the old football coach, was working with. Did Coach Curtis work with any of you guys?
Yeah. He was a beast.
We had some fun times in the weight room, for sure. Eric? Go ahead, Eric.
Myself? Okay. Yeah. I remember getting on the mound, pretty cocky kid, New York. I pitched pretty well in high school, and I get up there on fall ball, and I got Heath Mathias in the box. I didn't know who he was at the time. He was a senior captain, I believe, with you, Kevin.
That's right.
Yeah. And I remember, I had a good arm, and I was like, I'm gonna blow it by this dude. And I'm like, throw the first one, he takes it, strike, next one, throw it in there, probably pretty hard, and he absolutely murdered it to left center. He was a left-handed hitter, and he hit it to left center field. That's the first time that I'd had somebody like back foot me and backspin the baseball off the wall in left field in quite some time. And I looked up, and he's standing at second base, and he's kind of giving me that little smirk, like, hey, Rook, like, hey, freshman, I got you. And I'm like, okay, he got me. It still sticks with me today. I can see it as if it would happen yesterday. And it was important for me as a pitcher to understand that experience sometimes prevails over talent or all sorts of other things. And I was like, okay, I need to start hitting the book, so to speak, and start picking these guys' brains, because they know how to hit, they know what they're looking for, they're setting pitchers up or whatever the case may be, but they're going in there with a plan. Whereas in high school, there was no real plan. It was just like aggression versus aggression. And I started to realize really quickly that the most aggressive person isn't necessarily going to win that particular at bat. So I appreciate Heath taking me off the wall that first fall, and it really kind of woke me up. And I was like, okay, this is a different animal here.
And when you said that, I was picturing him too, smiling. I could see him doing that and smirking at you for sure.
Oh yeah, almost taunting. It was good.
Tyler?
I'll just again echo what everyone else said. In high school, I think I gained 35 or 40 pounds my freshman year. I think it was like the freshman 40. And a lot of it was muscle. Not enough of it was muscle. But you realize that you do need to catch up real quick. And everyone's at a different maturity level too, physically, when they get to college. And I think I was a little probably behind the curve. But as far as like the approach, like the hitting, I went into fall ball swinging at everything. and I got real lucky. I think Coach DePew made me play a triple header at, I forget where it was. It was up on a hill, Susquehanna maybe. I ended up playing a triple header, and I think he gave me 2 per diems, so I got like 2 Big Mac meals on the way home. But I went like 9 for 13, but it was like I was swinging at everything. And then we went down to Williamsburg for our first series in the spring, and I was facing pitching that was like the number 4 starter was like the best thing I've ever seen, and you force yourself to adjust. And I think some people made the adjustment quicker than others, and luckily I stopped swinging at everything, and I started understanding what the guy on the mound is trying to do, and saw a little bit more success. But I think everyone just hit that maturity process at a different time. And we had guys on our squad who like Frank Frasconi didn't even make the team his freshman year, but then he worked and worked and worked, and then he had started understanding what the game was about at the college level, and he was Patriot League Player of the Year our senior year. So it's really a matter of timing, I think, with everybody and when they catch their stride. I was lucky. I guess I got it a little early.
Great. Well, good. I'll have Brendan ask a question here, and we'll start with you this time, Tyler. We'll go right back to you, and then I'll start asking some questions again. So go ahead.
So thanks, guys, for letting me be here and listen to you. It's kind of cool. I'm wondering what my answers are going to be 15, 20 years from now. I'm very curious. So, first question, though. Just general advice you give me, the other guys on the team right now, us going through the years, and what your advice would be for the college baseball experience at Bucknell going forward. Just general advice you give us.
My first bit of advice would be just try to enjoy every second that you get, whether it's on the field or off the field with your teammates. You only get to do it once. I know some guys are still around the game. Eric's been lucky enough, blessed with a great arm. He's still in the game, but I don't think there's ever going to be an experience, even if you're still in baseball, that's as great as living and playing every day with your teammates. So I would just cherish it. And unfortunately, you guys with this pandemic, it's probably not been real easy on you. But I hope it turns around and that you get to experience it, the way we did, which is just a ton of camaraderie and recognizing how lucky you are to be playing baseball in a D1 program, getting to travel and play great competition and really find out what you're made of, both as a person and as a ball player. So just enjoy every second of it.
Definitely try to, for sure. Thank you.
Eric, go ahead.
I would say attack every single rep, talking about on the field in particular. Attack every single rep. Every time you have that ball in your hand or you have that bat in your hand, attack every single rep like it's the last ball you're ever going to see, because it might be, injuries happen, or the game gets taken out of your hand, they rip the jersey off your back. And I see that all the time in the professional game. And I have to deliver those messages to kids all the time when we have to release players. And every time we do that, it reminds me, say, hey, we're very fortunate. We're very lucky to put the uniform on every single day. And you just never know when it's going to be your last time. So anytime there's a ball near you, this could be the last time you touch the baseball, attack it, attack. And continue to fight. And ultimately there's life lessons in this beautiful game that we love. And there's a lot of teaching moments, and there's a lot of learning moments just in the dugout, on the field itself, I'm watching a batting practice right now, just watching batting practice. I'm thinking about my Bucknell experiences and all the great times we had and the great teams we had and some of the great games that we played. And hopefully we get a chance to talk about some of those because I shared the field with two of these guys for several years. And I still remember those moments. So attack the game, attack life, and when it's over, that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you. And, we had Eric on a team Zoom with us kind of early on during the pandemic, and he had a similar message, for the guys, and I know they reacted very well to that, and it's one of the things I'm most proud of our players during all this. How committed they're staying to the game, and how well they did academically, and how much they are getting accomplished even when it's not. So they definitely took those words to heart. They're attacking it, and I appreciate you getting on with us for sure.
It's awesome.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah, I don't have too much more to add. I just, really enjoyed it. I think one thing that I realize is that you're probably never going to have like a group of 25 friends like that are this close again. I mean, as you move on, you'll have 4 or 5 friends that are really tight, but you're never going to have this like close-knit 25 group of guys that you can share all these experiences with. So really try to enjoy that and spend as much time with the guys as you can. And that's one of the things that you'll probably you have to be on a baseball team or some sort of sports team to really get to have. So really enjoy that aspect of it.
I love that. Kurt, go ahead.
Pretty much the same thing they all said. The only thing that I would sort of add on is I've gotten to the point now with having 2 boys of trying to instill all of those kinds of lessons into them that, hey, my one son just graduated high school and my other one's in 8th grade. And I'm like, you don't know if my senior son's senior year of baseball got canceled. And he's not going to play in college. And so he never knew that it was going to be the last time. So like what Eric was saying, just enjoy and soak it in, because the trying to prepare for this has brought back so many incredible memories, and it's been great just thinking about things that I really haven't thought too much of in the last 30 years.
For sure. I think that's one of the great things about the Bucknell baseball experience, how close, the teams get. At 2 different places, it really wasn't like that, in terms of that. I enjoyed it, but how close-knit you guys are and how connected you guys stay is really cool to see, for sure. You guys played on some pretty good teams during your time at Bucknell. What do you think were the keys to your success? And we'll start off with Tyler again.
Going this way?
Yep.
Well, I played on some really good teams, and we hit the ball. We had some guys who just picked it up big time on the mound, and we're just like shutting it down like for the entire season. And it seemed like I started all 4 years, but it seemed like we always had at least one guy at the top of the rotation that would just step up. It was always a senior, and they would just step up. It was like they were placed in this role. You're going to take the ball and lead the team and set the tone. And when we had guys doing that, I think it took some of the pressure off you when you were at the plate. And I think so. The key to success was that when you're able to build trust and confidence in your teammates, you can trust them to put the ball in play or pitch to an out, and it kind of lets everyone else be free and play their best ball relaxed. So I think that the success we had was due in a large part to that.
Did you hear that, Brendan? You're a senior next year, and you're going to be in that role for sure. And Eric, he's definitely a guy that you should be looking at. Pretty good curveball and pretty good velocity as well. So,
Well, Brendan, I'm not in scouting, so.
I don't mean to put any pressure on you. Go ahead, Eric.
But yeah, I would echo what Tyler said. Honestly, there were always these moments where the older guys would step up, and it wasn't always on the field kind of thing. It was some sort of leadership moment where the last 3 years prior, they learned something from somebody, whether that's Gene or some other senior that came before them, and it was sort of like this passing the torch moment. I felt like even when I was a senior, like the younger players were more talented than us. The leadership came from the top, and it was sort of like this trickle-down effect. There was never a moment where somebody didn't have your back. And it reminds me of we played a play-in game in '96, I think, against Siena, I want to say, and it was epic. Yeah, it was some epic 13 inning battle. I don't know, some crazy game, back and forth. They score one, we score one, they score. And there was consequences to this game. If you win, you go on to the NCAA tournament, which I don't think Bucknell had been to maybe in a while or ever. I can't really recall, but it was super important. And we're playing these kind of like, I felt like they were like a thug kind of team from the North Country of upstate somewhere. I don't know where they were from, but they were a really good team. They had a couple pitchers drafted off the team. Their number one starter went up against maybe Anders, and it was a straight up battle, and it ended up coming down to just grit and grinding it out and getting those, that final run across the board. But it was never a moment of like extreme pressure or anything. It was like, no, I got you, dog. We're going to win this one. You go back to the dugout after giving up a run, go back to the dugout. We immediately put up another run on the board. It was just this back and forth thing. The point really was just, there was so much leadership and so much like, we depended on one another. And I've been on a lot of teams that frankly have tons of talent and they don't win. The teams that win have that leadership, and somewhere in that Bucknell experience that was instilled on us in a non-pressurized environment, just a well-rounded place to play baseball and to go to school. And I really appreciate that about the program and our history, that we can pass that torch and that leadership thing gets, keep that thing going. So that'd be where my mind goes there.
Love it. Kevin?
Yeah, I'd like to, having Anders as our number one pitcher, I felt like pretty much it was on the offense. We should win every one of those games. He never gave up. I feel like I never remember him giving up more than 3 runs in a game. He wouldn't strike out a ton of people, but no one could square up the ball against Mike. So having that number one starter where you basically felt like that game should be automatic, that was huge. And another thing, I think my freshman year, we had a lot of good players in the incoming class, and there were a lot of ones that weren't necessarily recruited highly. And Gene actually had a JV team that year, which I don't know if they had a JV team anytime before or how often it happens after, but this was a big deal. And the fact that he had that JV team kept, me and Heath and a bunch of other really good players around the program. And probably we would have, knowing Heath, he probably would have just partied a lot or something like that. But, it kept us in the program. And I think it was pretty visionary, a move by him, that if he hadn't done that particular thing, I'm not sure we would have got to some of the great teams that we had, especially towards my senior year.
Yeah, that was something I didn't know. I love that you brought that up. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I'll piggyback off of Kevin. They actually did have my junior year. I think we tried the JV thing, and it had the reverse effect. All those people that got put on the JV said, I'm done, because I don't know that they even had any games. It was more like they were going to have, they'd play against each other, and they could come practice with the varsity. But I don't think out of the guys that were slated for the JV team that there might have been one or two that actually stuck around and played the next year. I think the biggest thing with my teams, we struggled. I mean, my first year we were 13-20, and our season started with a trip down to VMI and Radford and JMU, and that was about as south as we went. The rest of our games were all New York, Fordham, Lafayette, Lehigh, Colgate, and so we never got the good weather games. And part of that I think hurt the program, but I think it also helped build that camaraderie, because there were times for spring break that the baseball team was the only student body on the entire campus, because we would actually, my freshman, sophomore, and junior years, we were supposed to have teams come down to Lewisburg for their spring break. Talk about an exciting spring break. Yeah,
Bull run.
I think it was my junior year was the year that we got 26 inches of snow, something like that. So one of the days our practice was to go out onto the field, which was relatively new, and roll snowballs just to get the snow off, because there was no tarp. But those are the things that kept our group together, was just the total, the 25 guys together, the camaraderie that you get from the bus rides and stuff like that. We did have Joe Markulik was a senior my freshman year, and he was sort of one of those very, very, very quiet leaders that might not have even said 5 words in a game, but boy, did he bust his ass every single play. Every single play, he went out and gave it his all. And that kind of attitude rubbed off on these impressionable, sophomores and freshmen that you had.
Yeah, I'd always heard Gene and Tommy Thompson tell stories about, those days and like making the decision to go on the spring break trip, to how instrumental the players were in like making that happen, fundraising for it, doing anything it took to get down there, and part of the things that really sent the program in the right direction and stuff. We'll come right back to you, Kurt. What was your most memorable experience as part of the Bucknell baseball program? You can go with anything here. You guys can go the field too.
I'll go with 2 of them. Selfishly was, we played Lafayette, and back in those days, you had 3-game series. So you'd play 2 7-inning games on Saturday and then 1 9-inning Sunday. And in my career against them, we were 0-7, and we won 1 game, and it was a no-hitter that I threw. And ironically enough, I think 11 years later, Matt Daly threw a no-hitter on the same day, which was just kind of neat. So that selfishly was one of my favorite things. Overall, I loved the bus rides. We used to go up to Holy Cross up in Worcester, Mass. And, we would get 4 guys together and play hearts for, an 8-hour bus trip. And it was so infectious that for Father's Day this year, I told my family, all I want to do is play hearts. We had never played hearts, and I'm like, I loved doing that on the bus all the time. And so this year I got my Father's Day wish, and I won, so that's the important thing. But no, just again, the camaraderie and hanging out in the hotels. They were never anything fancy. Stopping at Shoney's for a buffet breakfast before you make it down to Virginia. just the stupid little things like that. But those are the impactful things. Again, our team didn't have the success that the other three guys had. We never made playoffs. And I have lived vicariously through you other three, just following everything that you guys did, which was awesome.
The buffets have always been something that guys have talked about a bunch over the years. It's still a tradition, that we keep up. Gene, he left pretty much everything in his office, and one of the things I found, this came up last night. This is buffets.inc. It's like every buffet in the country. He knew where they all were, so that's how he found them. He had this, and I know you guys ate at plenty of them for sure. Go ahead, Kevin.
Well, obviously on the field was, playing University of Florida and the regionals of the College World Series. That was pretty amazing. But off the field was spring break. I think it was my junior year. We were at Bennigan's, and Dave Apollon was driving the van home. And as we pulled out the back, we stopped at a stop sign, and we started going, and two guys in some beat up Camaro just come flying through the stop sign, smash into the van. Right? One of the guys gets out and starts talking to us, and then immediately darts into the bush in Florida, runs for it. These guys don't have shirts on or anything like that. Right? The other guy gets in the car, far away. But my most memorable moment was seeing Gene show up on the scene of the accident at 1:30 in the morning, and the look he gave us when he saw the shape the van was in. So that was my most memorable off the field moment.
For sure.
He was very understanding. There was no yelling. There was just all right, this happened, not your fault. Let's get this done, and he got us a new van.
I love it. I don't think we've been back to Bennigan's since. That was kind of a jinx for us, but
yeah.
Deal. Eric.
I think Gino called that the Apollon waiver, because every time we had to drive the vans after that, he was like, "Don't pull an Apollon."
Yeah.
Oh,
it wasn't his fault. As much as I'd like to blame him, it wasn't his fault.
I'll go on the field. I don't know. I can't remember if it was my sophomore year or junior year. We're playing West Point, and I think another playoff type situation where we got to win or we're done. And we're talking maybe the 7th or 8th inning. All of a sudden, the West Point guys they march out the entire school, and it's raining and drizzling in just a gross New York day, and it's cold, and Army's got a good team on that. They had a couple of guys that got looks to play out later on. They had a good team, and it's raining, it's pouring, and I'm out there as the closer or something, and I'm trying to warm up, and I just remember these poor kids at West Point just in their gray fatigues, and they're wet, and they look like wet dogs just beaten down. But the highlight of their day was to come out and support their team, and they're out there, and I'm warming up in the pen, and they're just absolutely burying me. I got the long hair, you burn out this and that, and all this stuff, and you got the Army guys on their horses, and I don't know who else, maybe some generals and colonels. I don't know who they were. They were just a lot of older elderly gentlemen, very stern faced. And they looked like they wanted to kick our asses. It was really intimidating, and honestly, I don't think I've ever been as intimidated as that moment when they marched that whole regiment out or whatever it was. So that was a really cool feeling. I don't remember. I think we actually lost the game, but can't remember. But that was good memory for me.
I've always heard that story. That's great. Tyler.
Yeah, I remember that. I was there. I know I had an at bat and looked down the side, foul territory, and I was like, "Oh, we're playing in enemy territory. We are seen as the enemy here." It was 2,000 cadets just watching.
Yeah.
A lot of them were silent, and that was even scarier. Oh God, say something, talk some trash, please. You guys are scaring me. You're so quiet. So I definitely remember that, Eric. You know, I don't know if I can even pinpoint one like best, most memorable moment. I know back at West Point, we had a day. I don't remember if it was maybe my junior year, but the wind was blowing out to left center, and there might have been 17 home runs hit in the game. It just was like every pop-up was out, was a home run. So much so that people, like the uppercuts that coming from guys like down in the lineup, it was like, what do you, okay, do it, go for it. But off the field too, I got to echo what you guys said. The bus rides were just the best. We just killed time with your best friends, and there's just nothing like it. So nothing else to add.
Brendan, why don't you go with another question?
Yeah. So my next question is advice for life after Bucknell. Advice on networking and finding the right job. When I'm done playing baseball here. It's actually kind of cool because I was a sophomore. So Christian Taylor, he was a senior. He's the one who got me the job I have now. So I always think that that's so cool. One of my best friend's teammates was the one who got me in my foot into the work world. So advice on that and for the other guys going forward.
We can start with Kurt.
Okay. I think you hit it there. The more people you can get and make contact with, the more you can get your name out there. This is another thing that has totally changed since I went through school. There was no internet when I went through school. There was no texting. There was no social media, thank God. And so, to be able to go onto a LinkedIn or onto a Twitter or be able to look up stuff that way is a phenomenal resource. Besides all the counseling center that you can use at Bucknell, again, just using those resources of the people that not only teammates, but classmates, professors, everybody's there to help, and it's a great thing to be able to use.
Sure. Kevin?
Yeah, obviously networking with current former players, if there's if you get an introduction with someone, it's much more likely that they're going to give you an interview or, even look at your resume. I would also encourage you when you get your CV together to put the fact that you played baseball at Bucknell, a great school, for 4 years, kind of up front and center. Because I think, even if you're going into like a tech type field, people like to see well-rounded people. They like to see people who work well as a team. So I know in my particular case, when I was applying to graduate schools, I know for a fact the only reason I got into my grad school is because I played baseball at Bucknell and because I was a captain. I checked on that afterwards. So make sure that that's up in front and center. Make sure they know. Don't be afraid to put that up on there. And I think it's some of those like kind of X factors that's really useful, especially in grad schools, especially in tech fields, because a lot of the tech people, they don't do sports, right? They're only into science and tech, and they like to. And there's somebody in there that's going to say, okay, you played baseball, I want to give this guy a shot. So I think definitely publicize that.
Eric?
Yeah, sorry, they're dragging this field here. I'm not the right one to ask. I'm super lucky. I get to do it. I get to stay on the field. What I would say is do what you love, whatever it is, because I think no matter what job you're in, including mine, there are days that are just mundane, and then other days they're exciting stuff. But oftentimes the mundane happens. And if you're passionate about what you do, you can kind of drive through those that boredom. So follow your passion, do what you love. That's the best advice I can get. I haven't really been on a real interview in a while. So that's where I would go.
Cool.
Tyler?
Yeah, that's, I think whenever you're pursuing a job or a career, I think you probably should keep in mind that your first job's rarely your last. And then follow the advice of the wise sage Gene Depew, who turned to me one day. I think it was when I was visiting after I graduated. Might have been like 10 years out or something when he was receiving an award or getting inducted into the Hall of Fame himself. And he's like, Tyler, I've never worked a day in my life. And if you can find something and have that attitude about it, like Eric said, if you find something that you really are passionate about, maybe you are lucky enough to never work a day in your life. So, that and don't be shy about pursuing what you do love. I'd say that again, your first job's not going to be your last, and rely on like the Bucknell baseball family too. That went for Gene's memorial service. There's probably 250 guys there. And they're from all different times and from all different careers. And it's just it's a good place to start. Really, if you've taken it seriously.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
Gene used to tell me that all the time. Anytime we can connect the alumni with the current players, good things are going to happen, for both sides. And certainly appreciate you guys jumping on here to kind of do that even today, and all your willingness to help out the players and stuff. We have time for probably 2 more questions. I'll ask one, and then Brendan will wrap it up. Maybe we'll start with you, Tyler. Just update us on your personal life. Where do you live, career, family, all that type of stuff.
All right, I live in Fairfax, Virginia. That's where I grew up. I have 4 children, and I have a lovely wife. And I went to law school. Litigated for 10 years, like in civil litigation. Then I had a bunch of jury trials. Got burnt out from that. Currently, I work for the Department of Veterans Affairs in their Office of General Counsel, and I basically do real estate deals where we take old facilities that are no longer in use, and we raise private capital, private finance, to convert them into housing for homeless veterans. So I love it. It's great. I get to be creative, and it's a lot better than standing in front of a jury and figuring out what you're made of that way. But no, things are really good.
Great. Eric?
I'm married. I got a 4-year-old boy. I live in North County, San Diego, and I'm the minor league pitching coordinator for the Padres. So what that entails is, on the intake process after they get drafted or signed as free agents, or signed from internationally, we onboard them, teach them, the kind of like the basics, if you will, throwing program, pitch mix, sequencing, those types of things. Then kind of as they kind of move up, we kind of get into a little bit more detail, pitch design, attacking hitters, all sorts of the different nuances that the game kind of can throw at you. And hopefully, we create a product, if you will. Unfortunately, the players are looked at as commodities, but you look up in 2-3 years, and hopefully we've played a hand in helping them kind of mature as men and then become major league pieces for our ball club, and ultimately try to win the World Series. The rate at which guys get up there is, something like 7 or 8%. of guys kind of make a contribution to our major league club in some capacity. So, a lot of it is we break hearts when we get to release players, and there's that human aspect to it. So there's definitely creativity in my job. I get to be a jock. I get to run around on the field at the same time. And then there's some front office stuff with, player trades and, talking about those kinds of things, player evaluations and stuff. So I'm fortunate I get to stay in this game, and that's kind of where I'm at right now. Hopefully our 2020 product is better than the last 8 years, because we haven't been 500 in the 8 years that I've worked with this club. So I don't consider 500 even very good. Our Bucknell teams were better. So anyway, that's what I do.
That's great. I wanted to tell you too, one of your former teammates, actually a guy I grew up with, Buzz Hanahan, back to the program in honor of you. So we got into his pockets a little bit, but he told me to tell you hello. He enjoyed it.
Great. Yeah, great guy.
Kevin, go ahead.
Well, I live in Boulder, Colorado. I've got 3 kids. My oldest is going to be a senior. He's actually looking to play either baseball and tennis in college, so he's kind of going through all this stuff right now. I moved to Colorado to get a PhD in physics from the University of Colorado Boulder. And now I'm also a Fed like Tyler, I guess. I work for the National Institute of Standards and Technology. I run a research group that does quantum information. So I can say, maybe this is intellectually challenging as baseball was physically challenging. And I'm still married. Let's see. I guess that's all I got.
Sure. Kurt, go ahead.
I live in Camp Hill, Pennsylvania, which is where I grew up. I've been married for 23 years. We actually got married in Rook Chapel. Have 2 boys. And I'm a high school math teacher. This is my 25th year. 24 and a half, because I didn't have a season for, nice COVID. And I have 2 boys that both played baseball, thank God. And I've had the joy of coaching them all the way from T-ball all the way up through high school, which has been a blessing.
That's great. Brendan, go ahead.
Yeah. I'm curious on who each of your guys' favorite teammates was and who you admired the most throughout your career, what the reason was. I know for me, Mike Stevens, when I was a freshman, made a big impact on just the way I thought about baseball holistically, and I don't know, changed my whole mindset on the game. So I'm curious on who your guys' favorite teammate was.
We can start with Kurt, work our way back down.
I would have to go with a group. There were 2 pitchers that I came up through the ranks with, Jake Kasanjian and Dennis McGuire. We had our third baseman, Larry Trout, and our second baseman, Michael Kearns. And then as a pitcher, maybe the people that I don't want to say got along the best with, but that I associated with most were my catchers. Started with Mark Kennedy, and then went to John Martin and Chad DeHart. And I loved both John and Chad. John was just the most relaxed guy you would ever see. And as a catcher, I mean, I'm going from Mark Kennedy, who sometimes threw the ball harder back to me than I threw it into him, which sometimes I didn't like, to John, who would sort of just, lob it back to you and come out and pat you on the butt and say, hey, relax out here. And Chad grew up pretty close to where I grew up, so I had known him all through high school, and he's just, they were fantastic guys. and guys that I truly miss and would love to get together with again.
You always got to take care of those catchers, as pitchers. They catch a lot of pens for you and do a lot of things for you, and you're pretty reliant on them for your success for sure. So, Kevin, go ahead.
Oh God, that's a terrible question. I can't pick my favorite teammate. I mean, I was gonna. I guess I don't have one. I mean, and Brian Waldner, I guess, helped me when I first got there at third base. He was kind of someone I looked up to. We worked really hard and, played the game the right way. And then, I just enjoyed everybody. I mean, there were definitely no cliques on our team in any way. We all hung out together, hung out with the freshmen, the seniors, and it was, I remember shooting, foul shots with Dave Appleton for power bars for hours and hours and then in the gym, so me and Dave spent a lot of time together. But I can't really pick a specific person.
I understand for sure. Eric?
I've got a multifaceted answer. I'll probably go around the diamond. My favorite calculus teacher was Kevin Silverman. Thank you for helping me get a D.
No problem. That's the best I could do.
I knew right away I was not a PhD in physics. My favorite, you were my favorite third baseman. Tyler Prout was not my favorite third baseman. He was my favorite second baseman because he had some issues throwing the ball sometimes. No, I'm just playing. I really enjoyed Mike Anders and Mike Tomko. Both for their off-the-field shenanigans and extracurricular activities, and their on-field compete. And they were pitchers as well, and they were right-handed pitchers, and they're eccentric human beings, and they were when they got the ball in their hand, man, they meant business, and that was something special for me to watch. And I was fortunate to play with them for I guess 3 full years, and then Mike came back and was our pitching coach. He was definitely a better pitcher than pitching coach. But, those guys were just special in a lot of ways and taught me a lot about the game and compete.
I love that answer. Tyler?
This is a really hard question, but I'm glad you asked it because I got to pick 3 guys. Not that they're like my favorite or anything like that, but just maybe that I learned the most from. So Mike Anders had the most poise of anyone I've ever played baseball with. So much so that, he was bringing the ball up to set position. It was taking like 4 or 5 seconds. And he got warnings from the umpires. But honestly, he was cool. He was cool. He was off the field. He was cool when he was on the mound. And I just learned that you got to keep your emotions in check at times when you're playing baseball. Then Frank Frisconi, I mentioned him before. He wasn't on the squad freshman year. He worked his butt off, and by the senior year he was hitting 4, I was hitting 3, and I had success my senior year probably only because everyone was afraid to pitch to him. So I got to see a lot of pitches, but he just worked so hard, and he made everyone around him better by working hard. We'd be in the cage until dark. I don't know if you have lights now, Coach, but we would just be, the 2 of us would be trying to throw different pitches to each other, throwing at troubling locations for each of us, and just making each other better through hard work. And then the third guy I just thought of for a totally different reason was Alex Inclin, because I've never seen anyone play harder than that guy. I mean, I just never seen anyone play harder. He just had so much fire when he played. It was unreal. And when he was off, but when he was on, it was a sight to see. So, I learned a lot from those 3 guys, not like direct teaching, but really just watching how many different ways there are for young men to find a spot for themselves on the field and off the field. And it was just a joy to watch each of those guys and play with them.
Well, that's great. Thank you guys. I really appreciate you taking the time to jump on here with us. And this was fun for me. We need to do this again, maybe in a bar sometime, maybe Bull Run Town Tavern. That once it gets all cleared up, and the real stories, or I could learn a little bit more about Bennigan's and what.
Yeah.
Todd, do you have anything else?
Yeah, I just want to thank Brendan for taking the time out and wish you the best of luck this spring. We're keeping our fingers crossed that you get to actually get out there on the field and have a season. And Eric, to you, good luck with that 60-game season. And all
Thank you.
Millions will be cheering for the Padres. We want to see you guys coming over 500. That's great. We'll be pulling for you. And to the rest of you guys, great to see you. Thanks for taking the time. We really appreciate it, as Coach mentioned. And to those of you that watched or tuned in at home, thanks for tuning in. And to everybody else, go Bison.